Hello and welcome to VOW Voices of Wisdom, the show that might not be for everybody, but everybody needs to watch this show. I want to say Happy New Year to everyone, and for those who have watched my show, I want to say thank you, and for those who are watching the show for the first time, generally VOW Voices of Wisdom is about relationships, and generally we go into topics that are informative, educational, and sometimes controversial. And today, I think we're going to hit all three of them. I have a wonderful guest on my show today. I respect her very, very highly. And she's my friend and a wonderful worker out in the front line. Her name is Audrey Gaines. Thank you for coming, Audrey.
Thank you for having me, Brenda.
This is coming up Black History Month.
Yes.
And is something I have a little pet peeve. And if you look at my title, the title is Black History More Than 28 Days. Because I believe, and I know you agree with me, that our Black history is more than 28 days.
Absolutely.
And I really am trying to break that mold, So I'm hoping this will be passing on to others that we need to know more of our Black history.
Certainly
and
do.
28 days we need more than 28 days to get the message out.
Absolutely.
But today I want to kind of focus on Mandela. What a wonderful, wonderful example that he left us.
Powerful.
And I'm going to read, he's known for his powerful life story and being a perpetual defender of human rights. Mandela was not afraid to speak out against opposition when he saw it. His strength and leadership was cause for inspiration for people around the world. And he definitely, I think, inspired you and inspired you as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I mean, the things that he endured, I mean, how long was he in jail? How long was he got?
20 years, over 20 years. Yes. Absolutely devastating. As anyone that had been in that situation would have certainly broken in 20 years.
Right, right.
But instead, he came out more powerful than ever.
Yes.
And I think when I heard about Mandela and his story, as you said, you're talking about, it just was so inspiring, and that I thought every young person should really know, every young person of color, and not only of color, but every young person should know this man's story.
Absolutely.
And his fight for civil rights and what he stood for was so important.
And just like Malcolm X, life brings you sometime through different stages.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think, in the beginning of Mandela's life, he was fighting, and sometimes it wasn't as positive as people might have thought it was, because I think he was, help me out, Audrey, I think he was fighting, he wasn't a peacemaker originally.
Originally, he wasn't. He was fighting more for, because he did see the injustices.
Exactly.
But I think the more you learn about the injustices, and know how that you can fight more positive for them.
Right.
And I think in a positive way that he learned that in those 20 years.
Right.
And I think that sometimes that we're put in situations where held back, because we have to learn, to do it in a way that it's going to make an impact.
Exactly.
And certainly, no one would have wanted him to have been incarcerated for 20 years and have to go through what he went through.
Right.
But he learned, he became more powerful in those 20 years in a positive way, that he made an impact. And people, I think, learned from that, his experience, that they learned what he was fighting for. And they turned it around as well.
Right.
And I think that that's what, early on, because I didn't know a lot about him early on, but what I found out is that it made a difference.
Yes.
It made a difference to a whole, nation of people.
And I think, when I actually saw the movie that was just out, and it showed how, basically, like you said, he saw the injustice. So I guess the first reaction is to stop the injustice. and you go through those process of maybe it's, maybe it's in a violent way, or maybe it's just to try to correct it, and maybe it's just emotionally, it gets so engulfed in it that it comes out maybe not as effective, like you said, as it could be. But as you continue, because I can personally relate to that to a sense, because I was brought up in the 60s and the 70s rather, and the Black Power movement and all that. And over the years, like you said, you learn how to use wisdom, how to approach things to make a difference and to be effective.
In a different way. And certainly, I mean, I can say for myself, and I can look back too and see that, the injustices that were done, and wanting to really like rip through it, like get, fight for, we have to get in there, we have to do something different, we can't let this, But then as you begin to learn more, and as you say, wisdom begins to take over, you begin to start to say, hey, there's a different way. And I think Mandela learned that, and I think that whole, his years that he spent, incarcerated, I think that he learned, and I think that also the people behind him, like Winnie Mandela, who was herself a social worker, she was there to fight the little injustices that were going on and help him. So I think he had some good people in his corner at that point.
Because in the movie they showed where even after he was incarcerated with other people that was was fighting with him, they didn't give them short pants, and they gave the whites long, short pants because it was very, very hot. And they gave the blacks these long pants and whatever. And even in behind prison, he began to advocate to get short pants for the blacks, and he won.
And he won.
And he won it. But I think that was one of his process of trying to begin to fight the good fight in a different way, but still fight.
But still fight. But don't give up the fight.
Exactly.
But do it in a way that it's going to make an impact.
Exactly.
And I think that's what today, if we brought it back today to, is to do things in a way that it's not in a hostile atmosphere, but we can do it in a more way that it makes a difference, that people, I didn't see it that, this is a different way, this is a different, way of doing it, and I think that Mandela really, the impact that he had on people's lives really made a difference.
And it still is.
And it still is making a difference.
Forever, I believe.
And I think that it has to be carried on,
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of injustices that are still happening, in this country today.
Absolutely. What we're going to do now, I have some quotes, and some of the quotes are related to different topics. And the first one quote, all these quotes are being Mandela's quotes. The first one I'm going to quote is regarding education. Education is the great engine of personal development. It is through education that the daughter of a peasant can become a doctor, that the son of a mine worker can become the head of the mine, that a child of farm workers can become the president of a great nation. It is what we make out of what we have, not what we are given, that separates one person from another. Now, that's coming from The Long Walk to Freedom is one of his books. Or what do you think regarding education today and the importance of it? I know we know it's important, but today, what is going on with education at this point?
Well, I feel that education has taken a great step in some ways, but I still think that it has a long ways to go in order to reach a lot of our young people. I think that some of them are not taking it seriously enough, and that they can get the education, they can, and as was quoted there, that you can become successful if you really put your mind to it. And if we could reach some young people today, if we could reach our young people today and let them know that it's not the end, and they see it as that, oh, well, I can't get ahead, I can't do this, I can't find a job. They can do it, and that they can become the successful person. And they can, even though and if you're born in a situation where you can't see the light, you will be able to, because I know, I mean, I worked in that situation and I was able to rise above it, because there were times when I didn't think that, gosh, will I ever be able to do this? Will I ever be able to? But if you keep that dream in your head,
yes,
Brenda,
yes,
and you
yes.
keep pushing for
Absolutely.
it, I think that eventually it comes, and if we could tell our young people
Yes.
that it's there, you know, for them, and that they can reach that goal, and they don't have to go backwards, they can go forward.
Right. And I think, you know, like the things that we've gone through and how we pressed through. I pressed through getting my education as well. And I think we need to share those stories with our young people.
Absolutely.
To let them know that, no, it didn't microwave happen.
No, it doesn't happen
You know,
like
it
that.
didn't
It's
push the computer button and it happened, or delete, and it, you know, it's more than that. It really takes an effort to press through it. You know, and I think that's one thing that we have to continue to encourage our young people to do.
and the success comes from while you're going through it.
Yes.
While you're
the
going
experience.
through it, it's like the Mandela story
Yes,
of
yes.
where he was at first. It comes through
Yes,
that
yes.
because it triggers something, and that's where it comes through while you're working hard for what you're
Absolutely,
getting.
absolutely.
You know, I can see though there are a lot of young people though that are pushing through their education. They're getting their education. They're doing something with it. I'm very happy to hear about that. But I
Yes.
think it's more that can be done.
Yes.
I think more that can be done in our school systems. You know,
Yes,
and
yes.
I think more. You know, for young people to be enlightened a little bit more. You know, I know they have the sports and they think about that a lot, but there's more to it than that. I think that if we could give them some of the cultural
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
background that they
Yes.
need. I
Yes.
think that they
Yes.
need to learn more
Yes.
of their cultural backgrounds.
Because if they, I think, not to cut you off, but I think if they really understood the power of black people coming out of slavery, being taken out of Africa. And a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but we talk about the survival. I mean, when I really think about it, Audrey, we're sitting here because our ancestors survived all of that.
Absolutely. And you know, now, you know, I'm proud of that.
Yes.
Because that I know that this country was built on their blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of them, and where they come from. I even get goose pimples when I hear the stories that the slaves, the stories that they have, and the movies that are recently coming
Yes.
out. The background is
12
coming
years
out.
of slave.
12 years of
Oh my God.
slave. I just think that that was so powerful, and that I think that this country needs to learn more about that, and I think
Yes.
our young people of color would be, I think, a little bit more proud of who they are.
And give them more
you know,
confidence, I think.
More confidence.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wish, you know, one of the things that I really wish that I had learned as a student more about my culture and not have been, you know, like I don't know anything about it, and you know, and I didn't know, and I don't think the people who taught me knew anything at all.
Exactly.
But when the older that I became, that I wanted to know more and more about the culture,
Right.
about, you know, the background, about my family
Yes,
background,
yes,
about
yes.
where my mom and dad came from, you know, their life and their struggles and so forth. If he made me stronger
Yes,
to be,
yes,
you know, because
yes.
I know that they had education
Absolutely.
in their minds, in their hearts, and that's what they wanted for their children. And that's what we want for our kids today.
And you know, like I said, this is, you know, sort of a controversial statement I'm going to make, but a lot of the education was purposely denied us. You know, when it comes back to the reading and the writing, that was completely denied us. But still, we overcame and we pressed through that. And so a lot, like you said, a lot of young people need to understand that even voting and getting your education, that's valuable to us today.
It is so valuable, you know. And just to talk a little bit about the voting, I was talking to some young people about voting, you know, because how important it is, and how little they didn't know about their rights. You know, you
Absolutely.
have that right. I mean, we didn't have that right all the time. And to have that right and to stand up and to, these are the things that the injustices that you can fight for. And so use them, you know, use them. And I am sort of like amazed at some of them not voting. And I really think that, you know, that they need to know more about, you know, where they came from, you know, where are you going, you know, where do you think you're going if you don't, you know, have that right.
Absolutely. Let me get another quote. This was sort of a long one. In its proper meaning, equality before the law means the right to participate in the making of the laws by which one is governed. A constitution which guarantees democratic rights to all sections of the population, the right to approach the court for protection or relief in the case of the violation of rights guaranteed in the Constitution, and the right to take part in the administration of justice and judges, magistrates, attorney generals, law advisors, or similar positions. In the absence of these safeguards, the phrase equality before law is so far as it is intended to apply to us. It's meaningless and misleading. All the rights and privileges to which I have referred are monopolized by whites, and we enjoy none of them. The white man makes all the laws, he drags us before his court and accuses us, and he sits in judgment over us. This was a statement he made at the first court statement back in 1962. That's pretty heavy.
That is very heavy.
But here we go, controversial. We can almost talk about this, about what happened even with Trayvon Martin. We have other things that we can probably think of, but that's the other thing that I think is very a concern, or a way positively, I'll say a positive way, we can have our young people to get into these parts of the law, be judges and lawyers and attorneys, and know how to get in there and fight for what's right.
For what's right, for our rights. And I think, you know, while you're reading that, I'm just thinking a little bit about recently here in the town of East Hampton, we started our anti-bias task force, and you know, just to be concerned too about a lot of the injustices that are being done, you know, towards people, you know, because of the color of their skin and so forth and so on. And that's one of the things that, you know, that we'd hope to pull some young people onto the task force to try to get them involved in that kind of, you know, way, so that they can see, you know, that they can make a difference, you know, and they can educate people, you know, and the whole thing with, you know, the injustices in the courts and things that are going on, because I recently read something about some injustices going on recently in the courts. And I just feel that, you know, if we become more involved, as you said, you know, and our young people become involved, they can make a difference. And, you know, Brenda, I know that you had doing the Central Park 5, and that was a very powerful story, a situation that happened to some young people, and how they were misused in the system. In the 90s, this happened. I mean, this wasn't a long time ago. And how that young man rose above and educated himself while he was incarcerated, but to really be able to look at the situation, to diagnose it in a way that he could be more powerful from where he was and where he is at this point.
People are still talking about that night.
What a powerful, powerful story. I mean, and a situation that you know, you can't believe that this happened.
Exactly. For 5 young men to be accused of something they did not do, and then spend 10 to 20 years behind prison, you know, in prison, and then to find out that they didn't do it. And on the positive note, I've been still in communication with Youssef, and it looks like with the new was De Blasio, right?
Yes,
With
de
the new
Blasio.
mayor in now, it
Yeah.
looks like it's a great possibility that they will finally get. They sued
Yeah.
the state. They sued New York City, and they have done nothing about it.
No.
After all these years. But finally now with De Blasio in there, it looks like now it's
Something
a
may
great
come of it,
possibility that this case will finally be finished.
Yeah.
Finally,
Finally,
after all these years.
after all these
And
years.
people don't like to talk about this, but they've had so many opportunities to resolve that issue, and they haven't. Why? The question is why.
And, just to, like to talk about not only these young men too, but this happening every day. I mean, we may not even hear the stories.
Exactly.
But,
exactly.
these things are happening every day. The Trayvon Martin, the stories, and there was another situation too in Florida that happened. These kinds of things, are happening all the
Yes,
time.
yes.
So I think the injustices, the more we get involved in the law, the more we get involved to know, to get behind and fight for what is right.
Yes, yes. And it's something else I'm going to say that's controversial, and it's being talked about, but I'm going to say it on television, that it is at the point now a lot of us, and I'm going to include myself, are feeling that ever since we have a black president, the racism has heightened, or shall I say, it's been exposed. How do you feel about that?
Well, recently, being a Martin Luther King Day, listening to a young man speak
Reverend
about
Lyons.
the report card.
Yes.
And I thought that was really
awesome.
opened. You think that because we have a black president, that's an A for us, right? The report card, I think he
Yes,
called
yes,
it, and
yes.
that's an A. No, it exposed a lot of the feelings about racism came out. And, and you think about it, and it's true, and you see it all the time. You
Yes.
see it, when people don't talk about it, when you're in situations, and we're not talking about the politics of things now, and, they're not looking at what is really behind,
Right.
what is going on. But you know what? Thank God that we had a black president.
Yes.
Thank you. Because in that way, that lets you know you can become
Absolutely.
anything you want to become.
Absolutely.
And no matter what it is,
Absolutely.
you can't be stopped.
Absolutely.
If it's right, it cannot be stopped.
And
you
go ahead.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
But where we see the different congressmen now, Cory Booker, and those people becoming now, and getting into Congress, and we're beginning to see more and more. Maxine, is it
Waters? Is it?
Waters? Is it? I think,
I think it
and from Texas we have. What's the young lady's name from Texas? I can't think of her name right now.
But we have a lot of people.
But we have a lot of people. So we can overcome that. And we can talk about these injustices without getting, without getting bent out of shape, without people feeling like, this is an issue that we can't talk about.
We have to talk about it.
We have to put it on the table so that people will know, everyone here is human. We all have our likes and dislikes.
Exactly.
And we're not taught, in a sense, that you'll talk about that a little bit too, about the love and the hate.
Yes.
And everybody's a human being.
Absolutely.
So here, why not love everybody?
Absolutely. And I think like you said, more can be done. And I think what we have to do is continue to rise above. Because I think if we stopped and allowed ourselves to emotionally get involved, which I have to raise my hand, at one point I almost slipped up in that. because it was almost like take me back. It took me back from some of the comments that I began to hear from people that I didn't think felt that way. And so it kind of shocked me. And I'm like, you know, and then the reality of it is I said, okay, Brenda, this is what it is. Take it to what it is, but you got to move on. You got to still love, and you got to still make a difference.
Absolutely.
But it's almost like going back in that corner and licking your wounds or crying your eyes out, shaking it off, and coming back up again. And that's kind of how, you know, the process is sometimes. But you got to keep it moving.
You have to keep moving.
This one I'm going to talk about is no one truly knows a nation until one has been inside its jails. A nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizen, but its lowest ones. 1 of every 3 black males born today can expect to go to prison, this is the statistics, at some point in their life, compared to 1 in every 6 Latino males and 1 in every 17 white males if current incarceration trends continue. I go into prison, I've been in prison now for, you know, mentoring in the prison for about 10 years now. And it's really a challenge for me that I always try to encourage the people that are there to not to come back, you know, because maybe they were stopped and frisked in the wrong way, maybe they was at the wrong time, but they have to get to a point where they know that this is another form of slavery.
I see it as
That's how I see
think
it.
about that as another form of slavery too. I absolutely agree on that one. Yeah, that's a tough situation. And when you talk about our young males, our young black males and Latinos going to prison, it is a sad situation because I think that a lot of them are there. It's unnecessary for them to be there, you know, and I'm not saying that violent crimes don't deserve to be, you know, something, you know, happening, but there's a lot of young people that get caught up in the, you know, drugs and so forth, and I think that they deserve a chance, and we're just going to prison. We're going at a rate that we shouldn't be going, and we shouldn't have to look for, you know, to go. I mean, you know, 1 out of every 5 or something like that going.
We got like 4 seconds, 5 seconds. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. We're going to show hopefully a few slides and enjoy them. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Thanks, Audrey.
Thank you so much, Beth.